Tea's ready, and sitting right next to it is the Plaud NotePin S. And honestly, this tiny thing is here to solve a problem I know far too well. Remembering what people actually said, because work does not only happen in proper meetings anymore. It happens in cafes, corridors, quick chats after calls, client visits, workshops, and those random conversations where someone suddenly says something genuinely important. And then, 5 minutes later, your brain goes, brilliant. What exactly was that again? That is the problem. It is not just forgetting. It is all the invisible work afterwards. Replaying the conversation in your head, typing notes, trying to remember the useful bits, and turning scattered thoughts into something you can actually use. So today, I'm looking at the Plaud NotePin S, a small wearable AI note taker that clips onto you, records conversations, marks important moments, and then turns everything into transcripts, summaries, action points, mind maps, and searchable notes. Basically, it wants to be a second brain, but a much calmer one. Let's see if it is actually my cup of tea. First, let's take a look at the design. The first thing I noticed is how small and simple the NotePin S feels. It does not really look like a serious piece of technology. It is smooth, minimal, and almost invisible once you put it on. You can attach it with the magnetic clip, wear it on your clothing, place it on a strap, or keep it close during the day without it making your setup feel bulky. And that is important because this is not meant to be a gadget you only use at a desk. It is meant to follow you through real conversations. The little magnetic click when it attaches is also weirdly satisfying. I appreciate that. And because it is so light, it does not feel like you are walking around with a recorder on you. It feels more like a small everyday accessory that quietly does its job in the background. Now, why not just use your phone? That is the obvious question. And yes, your phone can record audio, but the experience is completely different. When you put your phone on the table, it changes the feeling of the conversation. People notice it, you notice it, and your phone is already busy doing 100 other things. Calls, messages, notifications, battery drain, distractions. The NotePin S feels more natural. You press one button and it starts capturing the conversation without turning your phone into the center of attention. It has dual microphones, so it is designed to capture voices around you clearly, even when you are not sitting perfectly still in front of it. That makes it useful for meetings, interviews, classes, client visits, or just fast-moving work days where ideas appear while you are already doing something else. And this is where the button becomes really clever. When something important happens, maybe a decision, a risk, a deadline, or a key idea, you can press the button again to highlight that moment. That tells the AI, pay attention to this part. Later, inside the Plaud app, those marked moments help shape the summary. So instead of getting a random wall of text, the AI has a better idea of what actually mattered during the conversation. Once the conversation is finished, the Plaud app takes over. The recording becomes a clear transcript with key points, action items, and decisions already pulled out. So instead of digging through a massive audio file, you get something structured, searchable, and actually useful. It can also create mind maps, which is useful because real conversations are rarely perfectly organized. They jump between ideas, deadlines, problems, and solutions. And the mind map turns that mess into something you can understand at a glance. Then there is Ask Plaud. This is basically where it starts feeling less like a recorder and more like an assistant. You can ask questions about your notes like, what were the main concerns? What did we agree to do next? What are the action points? What did the client mention about the deadline? And instead of you digging through recordings manually, Plaud can pull the answer from the context it has saved. That is genuinely useful if your work involves lots of conversations. Managers, consultants, creators, journalists, doctors, students, salespeople, basically anyone who has to listen, respond, and remember things at the same time. The NotePin S also makes sense because it is not limited to one place. You can use it during in-person conversations, quick discussions, lessons, workshops, and moving work days. And with Plaud Desktop, you can manage your recordings from a computer too. That makes it easier if you prefer working on a larger screen, organizing notes, or using your summaries as part of a bigger workflow. Another useful detail is that it can work with Find My if you are in the Apple ecosystem. And for something this small, that is actually a very practical feature. Because yes, I absolutely would lose this in a bag, a jacket, or somewhere between my keys and my will to answer emails. Battery life is another important part. A device like this only makes sense if you can rely on it. The idea is that it can record for a long time and stay ready when you need it, so you are not constantly thinking about charging before every single conversation. And then, of course, there is privacy. This is not the kind of gadget you should use secretly. You need to get consent from the people being recorded and follow local laws. That part matters. But from the product side, Plaud is built around secure storage and privacy protection, which is important if you are recording business conversations, interviews, client meetings, or anything sensitive. There is also a subscription side to the product. The basic recording is one thing, but the smarter AI features, summaries, Ask Plaud, advanced insights templates, and more structured outputs are where the real value comes from. So yes, that is something to consider. This is not just a one-time hardware gadget. It is really a hardware and software system, but that also explains why it feels more powerful than a normal voice recorder. A simple recorder captures sound. Plaud tries to turn that sound into useful knowledge. And that is the real point of the NotePin S. It is not trying to replace your brain. It is trying to reduce the mental load around your brain. You can stay present in the conversation instead of constantly thinking, should I write that down? You can respond properly instead of typing while someone is still talking. And afterwards, you do not have to rebuild the entire conversation from memory. So, is the Plaud NotePin S my cup of tea? Honestly, yes, especially if your work depends on conversations. If you are always in meetings, interviews, lessons, client calls, workshops, or quick discussions where useful ideas appear and disappear quickly, this could save a serious amount of time and mental energy. It is small, wearable, simple to use, and the real strength is what happens after the recording. Summaries, action points, search, and ask Plaud. And just as my tea has run out, so has my review. I'll leave the link to the Plaud NotePin S in the description below with the latest prices and offers. Let me know in the comments. What is one conversation you really wish you had recorded properly? Thanks for watching, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.